Hey everyone, Percy here. Okay, today we're going to talk about a new company, or at least a new plugin developer called Soundspear. Now they just released 3 brand new plugins just last week or so. Now they contacted me and they asked me if I wanted to do an honest review, as they put it, about one or more of those plugins. Now I accepted, so I'm going to do an honest review about one of those plugins. So today we're going to talk about the plugin called KTT by Soundspear. Let's go.
Supercy.
Alright, KTT by Soundspear. Now, I will leave a link in the description for you to check it out if you want to. Now, once you've downloaded it, this is what it's going to look like. But what is it? So what is KTT? Now, many of you will be familiar with a plugin called OTT by Xfer Records. For those of you that don't know, OTT stands for over the top compression. It is a compressor. It is a multi-band compressor, to be precise. Now, one of the hallmark features of OTT is that it not only features downwards compression, like most compressors do, but it also features upwards compression. So downwards compression and upwards compression built into one plugin. Again, it's also a multi-band compressor. It has 3 frequency bands, and that makes it a very, very useful tool. Now, what is KTT? Now, KTT stands for Kill the Top, which already should tell you something right there. But it's, it's basically based on the same idea as OTT, but at Soundspear, they made some changes, so to speak, and they're kind of calling it a better version of OTT, or a better OTT, or better than OTT, something like that. Yeah, well, let's take a look at it. So let's quickly take a look at the interface of KTT. All right, now, first of all, here we have the dry-wet knob. And then here to the right we have the output gain. Pretty self-explanatory so far. But then here we have the downwards knob. I'm just gonna call it that. Now, what you need to know is that I just mentioned that OTT has 3 different frequency bands. KTT has 6 frequency bands. Now, with this knob you can set the amount of downwards compression. So you can set the amount, but from there on KTT kinda takes over. It's kind of an automatic process. You could say it's kind of a smart element within the plugin. It is going to set the ratio and the threshold for each of those bands individually. And it's going to be different for every band. And this is just, as I mentioned, an automatic process, and it cannot be changed. So you don't have any control over this. You can only set the amount. And then here we have the upwards compression knob, which basically works exactly the same as the downwards compression knob, obviously. Then down here, this is a visual presentation of the compression applied to each of the 6 bands. You can see 6 bands down and 6 bands up. And then here we have the exciter. Now the exciter adds some distortion, a layer of distortion as they call it. Then here we have the attack and release. Again, pretty self-explanatory to anyone who knows anything about compression. And then finally here we have the analog knob. And with this you can switch between fully digital or, adding a little bit of analog emulation. And that is the entire interface of KTT. Alright, now let's hear it in action. I'm not going to do an extensive demonstration, but let's mess around just a little bit. So this is a little song that I've been working on, and let's first just take a listen. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, now I just put an instance of KTT on the lead sound, and the lead sound is this sound right here. Let me solo it and play it for you. So it's basically a piano sound. Now, piano sound is a realistic sound, or a kind of realistic sound. Now, typically realistic sounds are not the best suited for adding something like KTT on it, because KTT is looking to destroy the sound, and so it's not going to be the best match maybe, but you know what, let's just mess with it anyway. Okay, I'm going to play the piano again, and then I'm going to turn on KTT, and I'm just going to mess around with it a little bit. Let's go. All right, let's try the downwards compression. It's funny, it seems like when I touch the downwards compression knob, when I just touch it, it works immediately, but when I turn the knob a little bit further, it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. Let's try it again. So this is a huge difference from here to here, but then from here all the way there, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Anyway, let's try the upwards compression. Whoa. Yeah, that makes a little bit of a difference. Okay, let's try the exciter. Okay, the exciter seems to be very, very subtle. All right. And just like the analog knob right here. All right, well, let's listen to it in the mix. Let me unsolo, and then I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna turn it on while I'm playing it. Let's go. This is without. Now let's turn it on. Wow. Sounds kind of nice, actually. All right, now let's focus on the bass sound, which is this sound right here. Let me solo it. It's more of a synthesizer bass, actually, but let's listen to it. Okay, sounds like a much more suitable sound, but let's do the same. Let me just unmute or bypass, and then let's mess around a bit. Let's go. Let's try the downwards compression. I have to say, I think I can hear the difference between here and all the way up. It's very, very subtle, but that is of course because it's only affecting, you can also see it, it's affecting only one band, it seems. And you have to listen real closely, but I think I can hear the difference. It's very subtle, but it's pretty nice actually. All right, now let's move on to the upwards compression. Whoa. I don't even dare to bring it up more than 25% or something like that. All right, okay, let's hear the exciter. Also very difficult to hear, but I also think here there's a very subtle difference. Well, I still can't really hear a difference with the analog on or off. Well, anyway, so that is the bass sound. I have to say it's kind of nice, but it's in some cases it's just very, very subtle. Okay, let's do one more. I just put an instance of KTT on the mix bus, and let's see what we can do here. This is without KTT. Okay, let's see what the downwards compression does. Okay, upwards compression. Yeah, I kind of like this. I really like this. It's just you have to be very careful with the upwards compression. Let's try the exciter. Alright, well, again, I really like this, but you really have to be careful because the upwards compression is destroying everything. Very destructive, but I really like it. Now again, not an extensive demonstration. I'm also not going to do an A/B between OTT and KTT. For one, because I think it's pretty complicated matching the two. By the way, on the website of Soundspear, there is a little video where they are doing a little A/B-ing between KTT and OTT, so go check that out if you're interested. I will, however, touch on some of the differences between the two while I tell you what I think of KTT. So in conclusion, now first of all, let me say this. I think that KTT kinda does what they at Soundspear say it should be doing. So what they're saying is KTT provides a rich and punchy sound with bright and sparkling trebles, punchy mediums, rolling bass, and deep subs. I think that's kinda true. So in and of itself, thumbs up to Soundspear because this can potentially be a very useful tool. Now in comparison to OTT, one of the things that I'm missing on KTT, it's just a little thing but still, is numbers. So on OTT you have numbers, so for example you can set the depth to 15% or 27% or whatever, or you can bring it up by 3%. Makes it a bit easier, you don't have numbers on KTT. Now of course not having numbers will probably force you a bit more to use your ears, so probably that's hardly a disadvantage. But then they also say at Soundspear that with KTT you have a bit more control because you have 6 frequency bands and you also have an exciter. Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, yes, OTT only has 3 frequency bands, but you do have the option to change the relationship between the upwards compression and the downwards compression for each of the bands individually. You don't seem to have that option on KTT. Now of course, having 6 frequency bands over 3 frequency bands will give you a more detailed processing probably. Not sure if it'll give you more control though. Now, of course, you do have the exciter, and I really like the exciter, even though I think it's a bit subtle, sometimes a little bit too subtle maybe. But anyway, not sure about having more control or not. Now, and then probably my biggest point of criticism, that's the knobs on the interface. So I already talked about the downwards compression knob, that, you know, if you just touch it, you know, it's going to be a huge difference. You're gonna hear a huge difference, but then when you turn it all the way to the maximum, you almost hear no difference. I mean, there is a difference there if you really listen closely, and it's actually well done in a way, because you can hear it affecting only certain frequencies. So, you know, technically it's done, in a way it's done very well, but it just feels like, you know, the difference between 0 and 5% is bigger than the difference between 5 and 100%. So it seems a little bit out of balance in a way. I don't know how to put it, but you know what I mean. Maybe it's also a matter of getting used to it. I don't know. But then there's also the upwards compression knob. Now, if you touch the upwards compression knob, it's almost going to blow up your speakers, so to speak. Not literally, of course, but you know what I mean. I mean, I really like the effect in and of itself. It's really nice. It's just that it would be nice if it would allow for a little bit more detailed editing. You know what I mean? And then there is the exciter knob. That's the opposite. That's very, very subtle. Sometimes maybe a little bit too subtle. I don't know. So, and the same is true, by the way, for the analog knob. So that is my biggest piece of criticism about KTT. Other than that, again, I think KTT is kind of doing what they at Soundspear say it should be doing. The sound quality is pretty good. Well, depending on what you're going for, of course. Might not work as well on classical music or light jazz or something like that. But EDM music, electronic music, you know, this thing can really be a very, very useful tool. Now, is it better than OTT? I don't know about that, but I do know it's different from OTT. It's more aggressive, if you ask me, as they also mentioned themselves at Soundspear. More aggressive, and you're just not gonna get the same results with KTT as with OTT. It's just different. I think it's worth at least checking out. So go check it out if you like, and let me know what you think. Very curious about that. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. For now, I'm gonna thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.